workshop, substitute workshop, is even about cologne or perfumes that we wear. We try to be very conscious and cautious about those things around children and lots of different children's needs. Drop off and pick up, what have you learned about that so far? You've been doing it.
Don't come too early.
Don't come too early because you have to kind of hold out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So, I'm kind of the shield protector of the staff in the building. First day of school is the hardest because all the kids want to be in the building about 20 minutes early. And I know that every staff member is working their tail off because they had these 19 more things they thought of in the middle of the night they wanted to do before the children got there. And so, we love you and we want your children to be excited about coming to school, but those minutes in the morning are very precious for the adults to make sure that their rooms are prepared. And oftentimes, when people go through the volunteer sub workshop, one of the main jobs that happens is parents volunteer in a studio. So they may come in and vacuum. You really, I don't know if you know yet or not, the time that goes into the preparation of the environment. 3 to 6 most certainly. Could be an hour a day sometimes, Chris, just to clean up the paint area, wipe down and sanitize the tables, vacuuming, reorganizing all the golden bead materials. It's a lot of different processes. And so if you want to know a way to get involved that Melissa was talking about, that 10 minutes a week or an hour a day, you can come in and do those kinds of roles. If you do that before or after school, you don't even really have to be on a volunteer list. But if you wanted to do something during the school day, come in and help clean the rabbit cage, for instance. And sometimes parents sign up for that. Then you do need to be on that list for that as well. So just know that a drop-off pickup, there's 600 young people coming through. Some carpool, there's 3 different times. It's a process, and most of you have already kind of figured out, if I come a couple of minutes later, if I come a couple of minutes earlier, then this is the sweet spot, that kind of thing to keep your car moving. But our focus is always going to be on the safety of all the young people that are there, and to make sure that there are adults in the spaces that are ready by the time your child gets into the environment. Any questions about any of that? You're saving all the hard questions for later, aren't you?
Did I hear somewhere that you prefer we use the carpool line instead of walking them in?
It really just depends on the age level. I think early ed encourages that because sometimes for some young children the drop-off can be easier for them if it's done in car line. Sometimes that when they're with their parent, that may be a more difficult transition. But you can use either one. We're okay with either way. This time.
Don't be too late.
Don't be too late, yeah. So I think that's really important. Yeah, and so we really want to be on time because it does affect some children. And it affects teachers, but it does affect some children, right? So many of the studios start as a community, not necessarily in the early ed, but children know. Your child that was at the nursery, when children were there at a certain time, they knew how the shadows were on the wall and that things were off and different. And sometimes that can throw a child off for most of the morning. And so, helping them and what you can do in preparation so that they can be here on time and walk in with their peers instead of walking in late. And sometimes that really can throw a kiddo in the loop for a couple of hours, if they felt like they missed something or they're embarrassed or something like that. Thank you for bringing that up. That was important. There are mid-1 slips, and again, that's usually just for those kinders and up, right?
So it's for everybody.
It's for everybody, yeah. So if you are late, we just ask you to do that, and that's all for our attendance process. So if you come to the curb desk, and eventually there'll be children there helping. We haven't started that this year, but they'll get a little mid-1 slip. When they go in, they just hand it to the teacher. The teacher knows that they've signed in, and they don't have to do anything else with attendance because the curb desk will take it from there. That 10-minute commitment that we talked about, that's hard because people are like, I don't know the volunteer workshop. They tell me I can't come in here. They tell me I can't come in here. You're like, when do I come and do this? It doesn't always have to be physically, you coming in and not during work time unless you have that worked out. But oftentimes, like at the elementary level, a child will say to a family will say to the teacher, what about, can we come in on Tuesdays and let them show me a job? And so they'll work something like that out. That's a great way to do that. Just have them show you something new. You pick them up from extended learning, you walk down to the studio, have them show you something that they've learned this week. or something that they saw that was new, or who they ate lunch with, or just sit with them. You know, the number one thing we can do with children is listen to them. Sometimes we want them to answer our questions, and what's the most common answer you get when you start questioning them?
I don't know.
And sometimes we do that, and we get home and our partner says to us, how was your day? Fine. You know, like, it's when we sit with them for a minute and just be there. And so just to go sit in their studio with them and just look around the room, you know, and wonder. And so when we wonder, we let them learn how to wonder. I wonder how they made Amethyst Studio, 9 to 12 Studio, has this huge piece of driftwood that they put these dowel rods in where they hang their coats. And so in the morning, it's lowered, and the children hang their coats on it, and in the afternoon it's lowered again. They raise it during the day. Anyway, it's fascinating. But just to sit there and just talk about it instead of putting them on the spot. One of the things we talk about in the family parent volunteer substitute workshop is called the 3-period lesson. So, Prana, I'm going to put you on the spot. Prana, can you tell us who Dewey was and how he impacted education? What? You don't know who Dewey was? Okay. Can you please tell us who?
He invented the decimal system.
He invented the decimal system, but how else did he impact the element? So sometimes when we think about the most common thing, even if I was to ask some of you right now, who is Marie Montessori and how she affected education, like we all get a little nervous, you know, it brings back maybe for some of us when we were called on to read in 3rd grade, you know. And so we try not to put children on the spot, and so we stay in what's called the 2nd period lesson, which could be that wonder or that practicing time, or we stay in the 1st period. It's, gosh, I learned this new thing today, where if I actually use my right hand to hold this bottle and hold it by a twist with my left hand, it comes off in a way that I didn't know it would so quickly, you know. And so I do this, and it's kind of the 1st period. The child says, I want to turn. And they say to you every day, open my water, open my water. And so this would be a way just to do that with them, with a little drama. And then, you know, let them ask themselves and not put them on the spot. You do it, you do it, you know how to do it, you do it, you know. And those put children on the spot and increase feelings of shame or guilt or that kind of thing. What's that? Inadequacy, yeah. And so we really encourage that kind of relationship. So discipline, woo! This could be a whole conversation. And there's probably some information on our Informed Montessori blog just about this topic, because we're kind of unique. You know, we don't do what everyone else does. You won't see red cards, yellow cards, green cards. We're not going to give them a catch you being good sticker. They're not going to get in a drawing for good behavior for a pizza party. We want intrinsic motivation, that inner discipline you develop. And that doesn't happen with rewards and punishments. So, I know some of you are getting really uncomfortable right now. You're saying, what? I have to take down the good behavior chart? Yes, take it down. And I have resources for you, but if you want to be all in, if you want to do things as consistent as we do here, and it will change the behavior of your child, more likely it will change our behavior first, we can help you to do that. In my space, which is the first room on the right, I have, 200 of these. This wasn't my reading last night, but I have a lot of these books. And some of which can help you just with that process. Discipline is a process that happens over time. It's not something we can force or coerce. And it's something I am super interested in, and I'm reading about all the time, and I have new books that come into my space that you can walk into and rent. At least once a week I have a parent show up or staff member saying, here's the kind of thing that I need some help with, what would you recommend? And I go, well, so, you know, if you do this, it gives you kind of this more seedy information. This is more like a scientific perspective, and we kind of figure out which thing you need, and then you can have some things. Some of you aren't really book people, and there's other resources for that. Our blog is a great resource part for that. And so one of the first things I say to families is the place to start, and this happens with staff members too, is we don't say good job. Crickets. Crickets. So, it doesn't mean you're a bad parent. I'm not judging anybody in this room. I'm just saying, if you want to be consistent with what we're doing here, here are some things we do. And so, we don't want children to do for us. We want them to do for them. Because if they do for them, they will do it whether we are present or not. Right? I had this friend of mine who's a teacher. We were both teaching at the same time. And she said, I figured out this new process, and now all the children walk in a straight line down the hallway. It's so great. I said, well, what do? She says, I put my thumbs up. And when they're in line, I have my thumbs up. If someone starts to get out of line, I do this, and I do this. And so over time, we've created that they want the thumbs up because they want to get this extra 3 minutes of recess or whatever if we keep the thumbs up. And I said, oh, wow, it seems like you've created a process. And she said, I said, what happens when there's a sub? It's horrible. They said they won't stay in a straight line at all. Right? You know, like if we create an environment where children do only because we're watching or because they might get that extra few minutes on technology or screen time, we're probably not creating a long-term behavior that is vice in our culture. And so if you're a family that says good jobs or has a reward chart, maybe a starting point is when they do something that you enjoy or that you want them to do, you say, good golly, how'd that feel? You know? And it starts to help us just tone that down a little bit. And you will see that they will stop doing for you and they'll start being more introspective. It's really powerful. And until you've gone through that process, you'll really see a big difference in that. I promise you. It's hard. It's hard to move away from good job. But again, what we talk to this new staff about is we say, good golly, or use something else, or goodness gracious, you know. And then we just sit with it. And so parents are like, okay, yeah, really? So if they just did this thing, they cleaned up their brother's room, or they helped their child, their little sibling that fell down, I don't say good job. And I'm like, so do we want them to be motivated because you did it, they want to please you, or because they know it's the right thing to do? And so we can celebrate. If Melissa just told me she got a $1 million donation for the cost of curiosity, instead of me saying good job, I'm like, oh my gosh! You know, she's excited, we're giving each other high five, we're mirroring the image. But if every time she did something, I told her whether it's a good job or not, and how many times has your child said, Mommy, I wrote you this picture, you're like, it's not a good job? You know, if we're not attentive enough, and then they keep trying to up the ante a little bit because they keep wanting it to be better, or to get, so if I do this, wait till they get to be 7. So if I do this, then can I get that toy? You're like, oh no, what have I done? You know? And it's really hard to shift at that point. It can still happen, but it's just hard. And sometimes it takes a humble conversation. Here's the deal, I made a mistake. I probably shouldn't have said that each time you read to your brother, you're going to get a new toy. And so I think that maybe we need to rethink about reading to your brother is just what we do because we're parts of the family, you know? And so I really encourage that we just keep reading with your brother because he's part of our family, not because I'm going to get that toy, you know? And so it's going to be hard, and it's okay. I'm not going to force you to read with your brother. I'm going to go read with your brother. And over time, they see us being humble and us making mistakes, and then we can start to support that learning differently. Whew. Tough conversation. Any questions about that? You think it's possible? Yeah? So just think about it. I have a lot of resources if you want to do it. One of my favorites is Barbara Colaroso, probably because her name's Barbara, no, I'm kidding. She's a really cool woman. This is called Kids Are Worth It. And so it's a real easy read as far as it's not Maria Montessori, it's The Secret of Childhood, which I had to read 19 times when I was reading it for my degree. But it just really talks about when is a choice not really a choice? When does it come with strings attached? So like when young children, we say, do you want to go outside? And they go, no. And you're like, oh no, everyone's outside. I'm not supposed to get everyone outside. We don't give them a choice if it's not really a choice. So we're all heading outside. I just told them. And they're like, I don't want to go outside. You're feeling like you want to do something besides go outside. How about this? We need to go because your sister's out there by herself and she's waiting. And we can talk about what your concerns are as soon as we get outside. And we hold. And it's not about forcing or coercing or trying to manipulate. It's about having a true respect for that child and believing in them and knowing that fewer words are usually better and holding is usually better. We're more in a culture of say it all a million times, right? So this is a really cool book for that. I'm also a really big fan of Dr. Shefali Sabari. And so she has 2 books. One's called The Conscious Parent, very, very valuable resource. We led a book group on this a few years ago. It really helps us to kind of slow down and think about what our actions and words mean to our children. Oftentimes we give them mixed messages. You know, we do not hit, and then we spank the younger child or something, right? And so when children get mixed messages, that can be really confusing. So if I show families this book, they're like, oh, I want this book. My child's out of control. This is the book that I want. I hate to tell you, but she's talking about us. And it's really an introspective look of how we probably haven't thought about our choices. They're pretty much companion books. A lot of this information is in this information. But it really helps us with the more difficult situations of a child that needs some extra support. My daughter, who just had twins, did I say that already? I said I've had 3 meetings. I haven't said that. So my one that graduated, the first graduating class is in her 3rd year at graduate school at Notre Dame, and she just had her first grand twins, which is very, very exciting. But she was talking about, and she's working on her doctorate in clinical psychology, and so she was talking about this new process that they were doing for young people, and what they've learned is that children with the most difficult behaviors that are established for multiple reasons, that the #1 thing that they found correlates to improved behavior is when the mom's or the dad, either one, has 20 minutes of one-on-one time with that child every day. And I was like, isn't that, my first thing was, isn't that sad? I'm like, Barbie, you're judging. It is, you know. And so I was with the grandbabies, the twins, this morning, and I probably spent 4 minutes with one of them, and it felt like it was an hour and a half, you know? Like I was just sitting and just looking and saying a word or two every once in a while. I'm like, 20 minutes is really hard, you know? But I could tell, I mean, we were completely connected and bonded during that 4 minutes. And if I did that 5 times during the day, it'd be a really powerful experience. And so it's just something to think about, is there's lots of ways that we can support that without charts and those kind of things. Again, I'm not judging, just suggesting. This is a cool book. There's also one, Talks to Your Teens Will Listen, Listen so Your Teens Will Talk. There's also one for children. So I have both of these books in here. So sometimes we get into the habit of just keep saying the same thing over and over again. And we start to feel like they're getting frustrated, we're getting frustrated. So these have some great tools and suggestions for that. These are philosophy books, and so some people really want to understand Maria Montessori's thought process. And this book, she really talks about that child mostly from 0 to 3, but there's also some 3 to 6. But it really talks about how children absorb everything. As I was with my grand twin Jude today, and I said a few words to him, I saw his mouth. He's 12 weeks old. Mocking, open it, shut, and open as I was talking, and I'm just flabbergasted. Like, you know, sometimes we forget how much they're capable of doing, and so, you know, our youngest people can do the most amazing things. So these are also really cool. Again, I've got 100 or more books up there. I just grabbed a few of them. So you're always welcome to come in. There's a little sign-out sheet on the shelf to the right. You just sign it out, and you put it in either the staff or the families box. And you try to bring it back when you said you would. So if you don't, one of my interns will call you sometime and say, hey, you still have that book? Are you still reading it? So,
Barb?
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sure.
But with the whole day job thing,
Yeah.
what about with organized activity? Like their coaches or instructors would tell them that they
Yeah.
cannot work.
Yeah.
Oh, you did great today.
Yeah.
Should we also then tell them, hey, can you back that down?
You know, it is an interesting question. I think it depends on the relationship you had. I mean, Glenn and I created our own programs for our children when we were young because we didn't want them to hear that all the time or feel pressure from that. It doesn't mean that, you know, we played lots of different activities when our kids were young. And so sometimes just letting the child know when they're old enough, you know, because it gets confusing for them. You can have a parent walk into a 3 to 6 environment and a child shows them the paper and they go, oh, that's beautiful, good job. And you'll have 9 children line up beside them. You know, and all of a sudden it changes the whole atmosphere of the room. So I think watching your child, like for some children, a coach or somebody could say that and they don't even pay attention. And other times it can start to shift the way that they see the world. And so I would probably, if it's starting to shift the way they see the world, I would say to the coach, hey, actually we don't say good job at home. If you could just help us out with that a little bit. And so there's a good job and then there's like a, woo, everybody, so-and-so's the best, you know, and then maybe your child's the one that never gets that. You know, and it starts to affect them that way. Does that help?
Well, I think our biggest problem is that now she is telling us good job.
Yeah.
Oh, you did good job. Thank you.
Right. So they absorb everything in their environment. So it doesn't mean that anything's like wrong or bad, you know, it just means like be conscious and say, so I want them to start to learn to do things. Don't we all want them to do things because it's just the right thing to do? We could all probably agree to that. So you have to just watch and see what's happening. Some of us came from a family structure where we wanted them to see the adult as the better person and the bigger person. In this environment, we don't really do that, you know? Like children can tell me that they're not happy with me at this school, even though I'm the director of the school. And Glenn's usually the principal, but whatever. That whole male-female thing. But we want to help them to know that you can always advocate for your needs. And so when we're humble with them, you know, and so for a young child, having that conversation demystified is hard. You know, for an older child, it's easier. But we can start to just shift the behaviors over time, and then their behaviors will shift too. Any more thoughts or questions or comments about that? So don't go home and freak out or anything. Just some thoughts to think about. And come back on September 4th because you'll learn a whole lot more just about that subject. I do want to mention that last thing on that comment says, so we don't have in trouble at our school. We don't have timeout space. We do support children that are being unkind or not following the process of the community. And so we do that in a way that holds their dignity intact and respects their individuality. So it doesn't mean that what I would do with Chris would be the same thing I would do with Kelly. You know, I know these two as different humans. I support them as different humans. If Kelly's throwing a temper tantrum, which I've never seen, but I guess it can happen, you know, then my first bet might just be to move closer. If I know Kelly gets really anxious when she feels like she's in trouble, I might go sideways to her, so I'm not coming at her front ways, and just sit with her and say, oh, you're really sad right now. Depending on the age of the child, let's say she's 3, I wonder if we could go see if Presley's in the space today. You know? And so it's not saying, come on, let's go see. You know, we're just wondering with them. We're just sitting with them. We're thinking about things out loud. If she's trying to hurt someone else, my body's going to be in between her and that other person. I'm not going to let her hurt anybody else. I'm not going to let her hurt herself. But I'm going to try to use a very calm, slow demeanor to try to help that process instead of power, manipulation, coercion. And so, you know, in most cases, when the adult and the child, and it happens easier here than it does at home because, you know, we don't have the same emotional strengths that you have with the child at home. Usually we can say, and I've seen it, it's the most amazing thing to see up with infants and toddlers, the very youngest of children, and I'll see Becky or Sarah say to a child that's really, really tired but does not want to go to sleep, and they are throwing down their body on the ground, and they'll say, you know, it's time. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to work. And it does. It does because they say it with care. That child has built a relationship over time that's consistent and follow through. If I say this, I mean this. And I don't do it and they don't just scoop the child up. They just say, it's time. We're going to start walking. We're going to put our feet down. So even with the youngest child, it can happen and it works really well. But we don't tell children they're in trouble. We don't use any of those words. We just say to them, it's, you know, it's okay. You can be upset. You can be sad. It is okay for you to be angry. Yeah, I can't let you hit that child. I'm going to put my back. It's not an option. We can do something different, you know. And so we try to just help them to know. And sometimes they have to leave the space for a minute, or they have to go, you know, hold somebody's hand or their pant leg until they're safe for the community. For young children, sometimes with an older child or a teen, they might have to leave the room for a bit. Sometimes suspensions occur, but it's pretty rare because we put all these other things in place and they know the expectations. And what we want them to do is to say, you know, if I just hit so-and-so and they're really mad at me. Wow, what should we do? You know? And so then we talk about what the next step is. And can you imagine a 4-year-old, which I see, I know it happens every day. They walk over to one of the early ed teachers and say, you know, so-and-so made me mad and I hit him. Wow, I see that they're upset over there. Are you ready to talk to them now, or do you want to wait a few minutes? You want to wait a few minutes? I'm going to go check on them while you're waiting, and then you can come join us. And to see the conflict resolution, you know, like we don't have fights down at this end of the building, mostly because they've been doing this since they were down at that end of the building. You know, it's a process that takes a lot of time. I could talk about it all night. I know you got things to do, so we'll keep going. But thank you. So parent partner conferences are coming up. This isn't a time for us to tell you all the bad things and all the good things. It's a time for us to work as a community. So if you have things, don't hold them for parent partner conferences. If you're like, that really upset me the way the teacher just talked to me and I'm not sure if she's mad at me, just say, did I upset you? You know, like, we want our children to do that. We have to model that same thing. We just say, we talk to adults just like we want our children to talk to children. You know, so if something upsets you or turns you wrong, just say it. And we're big people, and we are okay with being questioned. It's one of our mottos at this school that any of us can question any of us at any time, and that includes you. And so it's okay for you to ask those questions. You might have to think about timing. You know, if they're by themselves with 25 kids, it won't be a good time. You know, but you can say, when do you have a minute so we can follow up about that? That's okay. But address it then. Don't hold it for November's PPCs or whenever. You know, like whenever it happens, just address it. Just ask the question or make your statement. We believe in you and we want you to get your needs met too. So we talked about the Parent Volunteer Workshop. Child's Work Night, October 25th. One of the coolest things for the 3 to 12-year-old environment, so it's just at that age level. And in the spring we have another one that's just for the 3 to 6-year-olds. But it's a time for you to come in as a student. We don't really use that word, but I'm using it tonight with you. It says you're a student of your child, and you're learning from your child. And so one of the first years I realized I wasn't clear with the parents about the expectations, and this child was showing his father how to build a tower of cubes. Sometimes they're pink or natural color. And so the child very carefully took the smallest cube to the rug that they already laid out and went put it on the rug. And then went back to get the next one. The dad goes, here, wait, I'll help you. He pulled out his shirt and threw them all in his shirt and came over and dumped them on the, right? And so what the parent didn't understand, which none of you will right away, is that there's a reason for all of that. What a 3-year-old needs is purposeful movement. And they don't need a quick fix, right? And so when they have to carry that very carefully and walk around 3 other rugs in the room and move it over to there, and once they get it all there, they're trying to look for the largest to the smallest, and we don't correct it, we just watch it. And if they start to get frustrated or angry, we get closer. It won't stay up, it won't stay up. I wonder if we could start again and start with the largest one at the bottom, and let's see if it will stay up there. You know, if they don't know how to grade it yet, it's not developmental for them yet. But sometimes they want to do the things that they don't know how to do yet. And so sometimes we just sit with them in their frustration. Sometimes we give them a new lesson. You won't know all of that. So when you come into Child's Work Night, you just watch. And if you don't know, you go over to Chris or one of the other staff and say, what should I do? You know, this is what's happening. What should I do? Sometimes, notoriously, a new 3-year-old will get out the puzzle map to Europe. And there they take it to the floor and take all the pieces out. And they can maybe find one where it goes. They look to you and say, Mommy, can you put it away? And you're like, I don't know how to do this. And so we have a process for that, and there's a control map. So anyway, you know, but you're there just to watch and not to correct. You're not to third period question them. You're just there to watch. And you'll be amazed, if you aren't already doing that with your child, how much you will learn. You know, from how they handle frustration and stress. Most of us are from a culture where someone's told us what to do, when to do it, and how to get it done, and so we're focused on efficiency. And there's a different way. And so I really encourage you to embrace it, because you'll see a whole different experience about yourself and your child if you do that all year long. It's really powerful. So we talked about reading emails, study the Montessori method, our school philosophy, talked about the books, support your child and team, we talked about all of that, ask questions, get involved with PIP, get involved with expansion development. Melissa just left from that. And she's next. She's on the list right this minute. And she just walked out the door. So just to give you a little knowledge, has anyone heard of the Casa de Curiosity? Okay. Has anyone seen the video? Do you know who developed the video for us? Okay, so there's a video. If you go to the website and you look at where is it on the website? Has its own blog, I think. Wow, you walked out just when I said it was your turn.
Of course.
I'm just ad-libbing here. I don't even know about the Casa de Curiosity. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I was telling them about, so we were thinking about putting this video together, and I look at Melissa and I go, let's do it today. She's like, today? Let's just get it done today. So like in 2 hours,
Yeah.
we wrote the script, and we filmed ourselves,
Yeah.
and we filmed a couple of other people.
Some learners.
And then we sent it to our coworker Heather, who was in China at the time, and she put it all together. And we did this in like a 2-week period. You got to see this; it's pretty powerful. And so it really starts the history of our school and talks about who we are as a process and so forth. So this is one of the big projects that we're working on right now, and Melissa's kind of spearheading that. And she's going to talk more about spatial development.
Yeah. So this space, did you talk about what the space is about yet?
No.
Okay.
It's as far as-
Actually, too, can you go ahead to the next one since she did my intro? I want people to see. So, so the school opened completely in 2006, right? Or was it-
1998.
This building,
Oh,
sorry.
we moved into that phase, yes.
Yes.
2006.
So it was built in 2 phases, and since the building was created, we haven't really done anything with the overall space to expand it. And there have been lots of new things that have been created. So as the building became full, and as we had new staff, and as learners started leading new projects, there's all kinds of new things that are happening in the building that when it was designed, we had no idea these things were going to be happening. And one of the main activities that's sort of come to be is a theater program, which is led by a lot of the learners in the building. It was originally created by parents and learners, and some staff supported that. And now it's a really integral part of what the teens program does. And they're doing these things in our MAC, which was really intended to be a gym, a fitness facility. And we want to create a better space for that. Plus, we're doing a lot of new and different things with how learners are showing what they've done. So they may work on a project for a whole year, and then they have a public presentation about that to community members and each other and their teachers to show what they've learned. We call those exhibitions. We want to do that in this space. We have parent groups that come in. We've been doing TED-style talks for a few years. We had a great partnership with IUS to do that, and we'll continue to do that, but we want to be able to host some of that here so that we can bring people to our school. So these are all the kind of things that we hope will happen in this new space. And it's kind of on the other side, there's teen parking around behind the school, and it'll kind of take over that space. And our goal is to raise $1.4 million for this project, and we're at $1.1 million. So we have 300,000 or so to go, which sounds like a lot, but we can do that. We've done this 1.1 in like less than 2 years. We can get there, and we just want all of you to know about it. If you feel like it's something that you can financially support, we'd love to have your support in that way. But there's other ways to be involved too, and I have more information if you'd like to see that about how to get involved with that. And that's probably all I want to say about that. We do other things. We have an event coming up, so there's a local day of giving called Give for Good Louisville, and we're going to participate again in that this year. That's on September 13th. And you can even just share that with people that you know. It's intended to be kind of a peer-to-peer, like let people know what charities you're interested in. There's hundreds of charities that are involved in that. So it's just a way to kind of raise awareness about what's happening in the community. And we've supported some other different activities. We had a greenhouse that was donated for some activities that were happening with gardening and growing vegetables and all those kinds of things. So there's lots of different things you can get involved with.
We surveyed our staff a few years ago and said, if we could do anything we want, what would be our wish list? And the top one was increased teacher pay. The co-teacher model at a public school that gets $3,500 less per child than normally Fleet County schools or Greater Clark schools, there's a deficit. And we're not going to make that part up right now. So we wanted to focus on that. We refinanced the loan for this building, which we've been paying down since 2005. But the first thing was increased teacher pay, so we keep doing that. We also, they also said have the additional space for all these projects and things. So the theater stuff and all these exhibitions happen all the way down to the 6 to 9 year old program. and having people in to do music presentations and so forth. So it's really a collaborative effort, and we're just a few $100,000 away, so that's really cool too. Any questions for Melissa about any of that? Yeah, so there's a picture of one of the theater things. So it is unbelievable how we make that MAC, Multi-Purpose Activity Center. By the way, out in the cupola, if you haven't already seen it, is a map of the school where all the people are and all the places are. And so it'd be a neat thing. You could always get one of those and walk around the building. It doesn't have any Pokemon, I don't think, but anyway, it's a neat thing to do. But we transform that MAC about 4 times a year. I think we only are able to use the MAC for any kind of fitness for about half the year, which is the reason why we created this other space. Questions, thoughts, comments? Was this helpful? Did I give you information? Yeah. We'll have a super night and all around if you have any questions for us. So thanks so much for spending some time with us. Thank you.